One of the things I like to work on when I'm practicing my guitar is to work on my resilience. Now, what do I mean by that? Let me give you an example. So, for example, I'll be working on a specific phrase. I'll be just trying to develop it, improve my technique around it. So I'll approach it in the same way. I'll use the same picking pattern. I'll be in the same position, just developing that skill. And then when I come to play it live, what will happen is that I'll be in the moment, I'll be improvising or doing whatever I'm doing. I won't be thinking about the setup for this phrase. So when it feels like the right time to use it, I'll be out of position. But I'll try anyway, and what will happen is that's when I screw up the phrase. So one of the things that I do once I've developed it, once I've got what I call the happy path, which is, the way that I prefer to play it, my favourite way of approaching the phrase, I start to think about, okay, how can I distort this? How can I change this in order to give me that resilience so I can recover in a live situation? And so what I thought I'd do this week is show you just a brief example of how I do that. Now for me, as you know, I'm a fingerstyle guitarist, so when I'm playing fast passage I'll drop into sort of a tremolo technique like this. And what I'm doing there, I'm sure you've seen in other videos, is I'm just playing the notes with my thumb, then my third, second, first fingers. Now, for me, the happy path is to start those phrases with my thumb. I tend to always start my fast passages with my thumb. But in the context of a solo, I can't guarantee that that's the finger that's going to be the first finger that hits the start of whatever phrase I want to play. And in fact, because there are 4 fingers, I've got only one chance in 4 of actually landing on what I call the happy path. So I need to develop the other techniques as well. So I thought I'd go through that. Anyway, so let's assume that I want to work on my C major scale, let's say, starting on the 8th fret. So that's the shape I want to practice. But as I just did then, I started with my thumb. So I need to work on starting with the other fingers as well. Now, one of the things that I find that really helps when I'm working on a phrase like this that I already know is to break it down into fragments and to start either at the end or the middle and then build out. And let me give you an example of what I mean by that. So with a phrase like this, I'd tend to start in the middle. I'd start with that very end point. So I just play those 5 notes. And just note how it feels. And at the moment I'm playing with my thumb, starting with my thumb. And then I just try starting with my index finger and see how that feels. Feels awkward, but I can do it, and then I start with my middle finger. And so I just work through the fingers like that, and then I start to broaden out the phrase. So the next thing I'd do is I'd introduce the next string. So starting with my thumb, then I start with my index finger again. And then I move on to the next string. And then I cycle through my fingers again. And that way I find is the most efficient way of sort of building out and making sure that I'm using different phases of fingers between the 2 hands in order to, as I say, build that resiliency in my playing. Now in this example I was just showing how I'd apply it to finger picking. But obviously you can generalize this. If you use a pick, for example, and you play a particular phrase and you always start with a downstroke, can you play it when you start with an upstroke? How would you recover from that? Or if you find yourself out of position or starting on a different string or starting with a different finger, can you recover from it and get back into the phrase that you want to play again? These are the kinds of things that I work on when I'm trying to improve my resiliency in a particular phrase or a particular way of playing. And you find the more that you do this, the more it crosses over and the more your playing will generalize across other phrases as well. So it's worth just spending that time doing it. And obviously you can continue to play your happy path as well, but it's just a good way of also giving yourself that confidence when you're playing live that you know you can recover from the kinds of vagaries that happen when you're on stage. So give it a go and see how you get on with it, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.